Hey, Anthony, do you like my new shirt?
Sure, man. It's cool. Could have been better.
What was that?
I said it could have been better.
You want to fight about
Yeah,
it?
I do. Let's go, chump. Hold on a second. We don't need to fight.
We don't?
All you need to do is go to 86.com and choose from one of their many designs. Franchises range from Skullgirls to Street Fighter and even BlazBlue. And if you check out 86 through this Twitch channel, use 86.com/?AFF=4 to let them know that Mission Star Podcast sent you. Alright, so that's my story. So, coming to bat, it's going to be Greg Dietz.
All right. So my story, which was on multiple pages, not just one, but I pulled the one from IGN. It's about how there's a revival of sorts of Telltale games. So quite some time ago, I actually don't remember the date. I'm actually trying to look it up right here. It was last year. Yeah, it was last year. Telltale announced that they were closing down. That they were they went bankrupt. When investigators kind of went into why, it was a lot of like they were hemorrhaging money for various reasons. They were not spending money correctly. They were forcing a lot of employees to work crunch hours and all. It was a terribly run business. Funny enough, as much as those games were entertaining, awful run business. And they had to basically put the whole thing up on the market. So a company by the name of LCG Entertainment purchased Telltale Games here very, very recently. And brought in a couple people, very few, I want to say like 4, that were originally from Telltale Games, to basically build Telltale back up and make it something that it was before. However, there's a caveat to this. A lot of the talent, including writers, the staff that worked on the game for programmers and the general workforce really are not coming back, which was, I think they said, like a solid 90%.
Yeah. All of the people that they basically laid off without warning.
Right. Which I don't blame them for not wanting to come back. I totally fucking understand that.
To be fair, they're also currently suing the company, so
there's that too.
Complications to them coming back.
Yeah.
Well, let's be fair. They're suing the guys that ran the company because the company name is been bought, and so I don't think LCG is going to have anything to do with the lawsuit, as far as I know.
They bought everything. They buy everything. You buy debt, you buy content, you buy everything. So the lawsuit's on them to settle.
Well, that's the part about the contract or what they bought. That's interesting to me is that not all of the IPs they get to keep. That essentially Marvel went back to Marvel, so no more, unless they make a new deal. There's going to be no more Marvel-based Telltale games. The Minecraft went back to Microsoft, and Walking Dead went to Skybound. They do not have any rights to those IPs anymore, so they can't make those games unless they make a new deal of some kind. And so that said to me that because of the way that those work, that contract work, that they might not have to deal with that stuff, but it doesn't. It's not super fucking clear in the article that I have up.
the question with those is how are those contracts specifically worded? Because if those contracts are specifically tied to people who are no longer at the company, like the people who ran it, or it's tied to like if the company goes under, all rights revert back. Like there's so many different ways they could have worded the contracts that without seeing them, we could sit here and spin things all day long, and who knows.
Yeah. Well, it says right here for the sake of the IPs. However, Warner Brothers license like the Batman one and the Wolf Among Us can be reactivated by new Telltale. They kept saying new Telltale, by the way, in the article.
Yeah.
Our information source says the WB likely blessed Batman and Wolf Among Us for the sale to go through the LGC Entertainment. So at the very least, we know that the new Telltale can work those IPs. It talks about what games. This is probably a lot of interesting stuff. Then it says, why did Telltale Games shut down? Telltale Games was founded in 2004 when developers worked on point-and-click adventure games like Sam & Max. It wasn't until 2011 when Telltale released an episodic adventure for The Walking Dead, which caused them critical success. Selling over 28 million units as of July 2014 and winning numerous Game of the Year awards. However, Telltale was never able to reach the same peaks as they did the first season of Walking Dead. Furthermore, crunch, creative meddling, and other structural problems at the development studio created a stressful work environment for many of the developers tasked with making new episodic content sometimes within weeks. In 2017, company co-founder Kevin Brewer stepped down from the company, and the company laid off 90 employees. Not 90%, just 90 employees. In 2018, Telltale Games announced the majority studio closure. 90% of the workforce were laid off, and a skeleton crew remained to complete work on Minecraft Story Mode. While some games like Walking Dead were saved, developers and employees who were laid off were reportedly given no warning or severance. Telltale's former management is currently facing a class action lawsuit over California labor laws.
So maybe they did tie it to the management itself.
Because that's what I had heard. So yeah,
I think that's going to also depend too on how Telltale was set up. Was it an LLC? Was it incorporated? Was it a corp? Like, because each one of those has different amounts of liability attached to it. So for like an LLC, they can sue the company, they can take the company from you, but you as an individual are withheld from that. Whereas like an incorporation, they can go after your house. So
right.
It's going to really depend on how Telltale was like brought together as a business. Was it incorporated, LLC, whatever it happens to be?
Right, and I think to an extent, if LCG does have to deal with those lawsuits because they took 100% of the responsibility by buying the company,
they'll probably just settle it.
I was gonna say they'll settle it, give severances.
They'll probably just be like, "Hey guys, they fucked you. Here's the severance you were owed."
Yeah, I think that's the best case scenario. Absolutely.
But the flip side to this, which I think is the interesting part, other than the lawsuit aspect, if this is the case, and LGC wants to build Telltale back up, do you think that they're going to go after IPs that they've had before? Or that Telltale had before, or do you think they're going to try to get brand spanking new ones?
If
I think new.
Yeah, if I were a betting man, I would say new. Why tie games that the previous Telltale company did when all it's going to do is conjure up bad memories of what they did prior?
I'll take it a step further than that. There's only one game that actually put that company on the map, and that was The Walking Dead, the first episode that they did for The Walking Dead. They have not had a success anywhere near that magnitude since then.
True. Yeah.
Why revisit shit that you know is not doing gangbusters?
True.
No point.
True.
Well,
true.
I think in that regard, like games like The Wolf Among Us and
well, they did good, but they didn't do fucking episode 1 of Walking Dead good.
And I think if you look at Telltale's record, you want that Walking Dead success. But Walking Dead was also one of those like lightning in a bottle situations where that game came out when the show's popularity was at its peak.
Yeah.
Yep.
You look at like the Game of Thrones game that came out. the reason that it failed wasn't that it was a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. The fucking first episode made me cry, for Christ's sake. It was that it was in the middle of the show's run. Its popularity wasn't that big, and marketing was a huge problem.
I didn't even know they did one. I didn't know they did one for Game of Thrones. I'm going to be honest.
They did one, yeah. I vaguely remember seeing it too, actually.
Like,
Funny enough,
I vaguely remember hearing about like the Minecraft one, about Marvel. I never heard about that one. Which should tell you how bad the marketing was.
Right, exactly. See, that's the thing is, like, I played the whole thing eventually, but I streamed on Heat the first episode, cried on stream, because I accidentally got it. Well, here was the thing. It's 2 hours long, so it's about the length of a film. And I got really attached to these characters, which is a dumb fucking thing to do in Game of Thrones. And
you forgot Rule 1 of Game of Thrones.
I sure as fuck did. And at the end of the first episode, a character dies that I didn't want them to die. Learned later that it was completely out of my fucking choice. Like, how they died was in my choice, but you know how that works. It's the fucking like illusion.
You can't stop them from dying, but you can make it be less painful.
Yeah.
I made it painful. Oh, I accidentally inadvertently made it painful.
Oof. Probably just made it worse.
Oof.
But it like, again, broke the first rule of fucking Game of Thrones, and like legitimately was like upset by it on stream. Here's the problem though. Never advertised any other episodes, completely fucking forgot the thing was a thing, and I didn't play the rest of it until it came out on disc.
And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like it was so poorly fucking advertised. I think it was a lot of that had to do with the fact that HBO almost completely didn't fund the fucker at all. It was like, we're not spending any money on advertising this shit.
It's like here's money for the game, figure it out.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right.
I mean, Christ, there was a different Game of Thrones based game.
Wait, here's a question: was that before or after AT&T bought HBO?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Can we link this back to blaming AT&T? I like to blame AT&T whenever possible.
I mean, hey, I'm not stopping you.
I would honestly look up the dates and see if that's the case, because if that's the case, that's really fucking funny. But there was also a Game of Thrones, like an HBO produced Game of Thrones. It's a fucking terrible game, but it's produced by HBO. And it was also very poorly advertised. Like,
I heard about that though.
I think you heard. You might have heard about that one because of how bad it was.
Well, I heard about it, and then like 3 days later, I heard how fucking horrendous it was, and I'm like, oh, okay, never mind.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I know that
I think I stumbled across an article or something that mentioned it briefly. Like, HBO put out this new game, and then like 3 days later, it's like, yeah, it's fucking terrible. Stop.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I always remember is that when the Game Grumps played it, when they had the guy who plays Grey Worm on, what's his name? I can't remember the guy's name suddenly. But anyway, yeah, they had him as a guest on, and they played it on there, and people in the chat the comments were just like, I didn't even know a Game of Thrones game existed.
Yeah.
Let alone a fucking Telltale one.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was really funny to me, but yeah, like I think. From what I want what I want new Telltale to do is, like, you have The Wolf Among Us. Let's go with that. Let's explore that. I think that there's a lot there you could do with that world outside of that game. You don't really need Batman. You can if you want, but you don't need it. And fuck the other IPs.
Well, let's be honest. Batman as an IP for video games has always been super touch and go. Always.
Yeah.
Like, it's either like, this is a decent game, or what the fuck is this bullshit?
I think the best Batman game we've ever had is the Arkham series.
Oh, hell yeah.
Arguably Night, but
I'm just gonna say Microsoft Game Store. Or what was it, Microsoft Live, or whatever the fuck they were pushing that made that fucking port terrible.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So
fuck. Yeah.
I remember why that port was bad, because they outsourced that. They outsourced the port.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fucking horrendous.
Holy God, that's awful. Holy shit.
That was a train wreck. Yeah. Because I watched watched my buddy play it, and I saw no problems ever. Like, we'd never experienced a glitch, but he played it on Xbox, And I saw like people were just like, oh, it's unplayable on PC, and I was like,
I do
what?
want to say, if you ever want to watch one of the most entertaining, because it's frustrating for the person, speed runs, find somebody speed running that. I've seen people do it. I've seen them do it at Games Done Quick. I've seen speedrunners almost come to tears because of how frustrating it gets.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say though, outside of that, is I think the second best Batman game we've ever had is the Telltale ones, for two reasons. A big thing about Batman that a lot of people tend to forget is that Batman's a fucking detective, and those are the only two games that I can think of where they make Batman a fucking franchises that they make Batman a detective.
Rather than I'm just gonna beat the shit out of everybody.
Right. Or fucking have a meltdown because somebody mentioned the name Martha.
Martha!
But yeah, so like I really, if they want to continue with Batman, I'm not gonna fight it. I'm not gonna argue it. My concern is that I don't want them to pick up where the other IPs left off.
Yeah.
Leave them alone, drop them, start completely anew, because you're gonna have new writers. Like, don't try to push this whole like, well, these writers have to like. Don't give them that stress.
Yeah.
Let them fucking breathe. Let them have some fun.
Yeah, don't have them try and pick up on other people's, unless you're gonna bring back those writers for those games anyways. In which case, okay, I can understand that one.
Right.
But don't try and make writers pick up where other writers left off. That's how you get shit like the Wheel of Time series ending.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like for the Wheel of Time series, if you've ever read the entire series all the way through, you can literally tell where the original author's notes stop and he picked up and had to finish it off. You can, it's like literally within a chapter, you're like, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah, it's
pretty
I
noticeable.
remember I never experienced it myself, but I read about it. But yeah, if I go top tier, like best to worst, or not worst, but maybe my top 3 Telltale games, it's fucking Wolf Among Us is number 1. That motherfucker is so good. Number 2 is the Tales from the Borderlands. And then number 3 is the first episode of Walking Dead.
I'm just gonna ask you, Greg. Are you saying Wolf Among Us is good because we had that interview a long time ago with the voice
I honestly
actor?
forgot about it. I honestly forgot we had an interview with him.
Yeah.
No, it's if you haven't had a chance to play it, it is incredibly in depth. It utilizes this idea that the comics built in Fables, which that's what it's based off of. Not even just based off of. That's what it's fucking from.
Mm-hmm.
But it utilizes this story from Fables, or the idea from Fables, where it's not interjecting with the comic. It almost feels like it's parallel with the comic. Like if there was a chunk of time away from the comic, that's what you're playing. But what makes it so compelling outside of that is it's a legit good fucking noir story. Like a detective noir kind of thing. Yeah. And your detective is the goddamn big bad wolf that looks like a human. It's awesome. It's legitimately fucking rad. And then, of course, the fucking Tales from the Borderlands. It takes place in the Borderlands world. It takes place right after 2. So if you kind of wanted to know what was going to happen to certain, like, Hyperion or whatever, like, that's the game you want to play. Plus, it is so well acted and so well written. I fucking love those two so much. So much. They're so good.
Nice.
Anyway.
Cool.
I'm happy Telltale's back. I hope that we get to see a lot of rad stuff. And I hope that LGC does, or LCG, one of the two. I hope that they don't fuck up Telltale like Telltale did before.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I hope so too. I hope they learn from what happened, and hopefully, things will go better for anybody working there. So, all right.
Well, they can't go much worse.
That's true. That's true.
Let's be honest here. The only way it gets worse is that the final people that are left there, they just shutter the entire company, and you're all on the street.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way it gets worse at this point.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.